Alright guys, it's that time of the week again and we are back for our Championship score predictions. Plenty to go through in today's video. We've got all of the midweek action to digest, but obviously the main focus of today's video will be on these upcoming matches. As always, I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below. How do you see these games going? And if we could hit 350 likes, that would be massively appreciated. But without any further ado, let's jump in. Starting out at Bramall Lane for a big game on Friday night. It's Sheff Utd going up against Sunderland. Good win for the Blades in midweek, 3-0 against Oxford. I think we all saw that as a good opportunity for them to score a few goals, which they did. Chris Wilder's side have now won 5 of their last 6 matches, and it's a bit of a weird time to be playing Sunderland really, because while they are unbeaten in their last 10 matches, they are in somewhat of a rut right now. They've drawn their last 5 consecutive games in the league, so while this tremendous unbeaten run has continued, there has been a bit of frustration bubbling up recently. Obviously, it was a goalless draw with West Brom in midweek. Sunderland, I mean, for the vast majority of that game, it was one-way traffic. Sunderland were the side going for the kill, but West Brom defended really well, and even when Sunderland had the ball in the back of the net, it was called out for a marginal offside. Sheffield United yet to lose at home this season. I do think that makes them the slight favourites for this game, but Sunderland tend to keep things tight at the back. I think this one's going to be close. First goal feels quite important. I'm going to say it's going to be 6 consecutive draws for Sunderland. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in this game. Next up, and into the Saturday early kickoffs, we've got Middlesbrough going up against Hull City, and it's tough to say which version of Hull will get turning up for this game, obviously, after parting company with Tim Walter. It was a pretty dismal display from them in midweek, losing against Sheffield Wednesday. That turned out to be the final nail in his coffin, and going away to the Riverside isn't the exact ideal fixture that you probably want to be walking into right now. In saying that, Middlesbrough were below par in midweek. It was a bit of a flat performance from Michael Carrick's side, who were missing some crucial players for that clash against Blackburn. Really missed Finn Azaz in particular. Blackburn structurally set up really quite well for that game, and Middlesbrough couldn't quite pick the lock, and obviously, frustratingly, conceded that goal in the second half, which was offside when shown on replays. Middlesbrough struggled to break down Blackburn in that game because they were really well structured. They put in a fantastic away performance. Do Hull have that in them right now? With the amount of goals they've been conceding this season, I'm not sure. The chances they tend to give away to the opposition, there very well could be a new manager bounce, or at least a post-Tim Walter bounce at Hull City going into this fixture. But on the balance of probabilities, I think I'm going to say Middlesbrough do find their way and bounce back in this one. Score prediction here, I'm going to go 2-0 Middlesbrough. After that, we go to Oxford up against Millwall. Oxford definitely find themselves in a rut at the moment. They've conceded 9 goals in their last 2 matches. It was a 3-0 defeat away at Sheffield United over the weekend. I think we all saw that as a tough game for Oxford, and they're going to have to look to bounce back in this one up against the Millwall side, who weren't actually in action in midweek, despite all the players and fans getting to the ground. Their fixture against Portsmouth ended up being called off after a power cut in the local area, so really feel for especially the Millwall fans that travelled to that game, all for it to not go ahead in the end. I hope that something similar doesn't happen this weekend against Oxford. I see this one being quite tight, to be honest with you. While Oxford have been conceding quite a lot of goals recently, Millwall don't tend to be that goal heavy on the road. They're currently averaging less than a goal per game in away matches this season, and Millwall have only won 1 of their 7 away games as well, which is worth considering. Both home and away for Oxford, they've only won 1 of their last 12. I see this one being quite tight. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw between these two. Next up, we go to Watford up against QPR, and it was good wins for both sides in midweek. Watford beating Bristol City 1-0. Bristol City had the majority of the ball and more of the chances in that game, but managed to keep them at arm's length, and ultimately it was Ryan Andrews' goal in the second half which turned out to be the difference between the two sides. It now means that Watford have won 7 of their 8 games at Vicarage Road this season, which is an absolutely unbelievable record. But they're going up against a QPR side here who knows, midweek could have been the turning point in their campaign. It was a tremendous win away at Cardiff, 2-0. Zancella with a couple of goals in that game as well. Could that be the turning point in his career at QPR? I'd like to say that both teams will make a good game out of this one. I just think going away to Watford is such a tough fixture right now. Score prediction for this one, I'm going to edge it to the home side. I'm going to go 2-1 Watford, but Cifuentes on the road could have something up his sleeve there. Next up, we're then off to Ewood Park for Blackburn up against Leeds United, and I have to admit, brilliant result for Blackburn in midweek. Not many sides will leave the Riverside with a clean sheet, but Blackburn did just that and ended up winning it and walking away with all 3 points as well. Yes, obviously there was some fortune with the goal they scored, which was offside, but Blackburn played that game really well. I think they kept Middlesbrough at arm's length throughout the majority of that game, to be honest with you. Structurally really good defensively, and I think that's what Eustace has got up his sleeve, to be honest with you. He can be quite a good manager in those instances especially. Blackburn played on the counter really well, had a marginal offside where Todd Cantwell had the ball in the back of the net as well. So they certainly gave a decent account of themselves in midweek, and it sets up this game quite interestingly. Leeds have been in really prolific form of late. They've now scored 9 goals in their last 3 games, so averaging 3 goals per game at the moment. It was 3 goals they put past Luton in midweek in what was a really dominant display at Ellen Road. Away form, Leeds can be a little bit more hit and miss. There was obviously that bonkers game on the road last time against Swansea. And John Eustace does have it in him to get something against Leeds. If we think back to the fixture at the back end of last season where Blackburn went away to Ellen Road, Blackburn ended up winning that game 1-0, Sammy Smodic scoring the winner. So Eustace knows how to potentially frustrate this Leeds side, play on some of their vulnerabilities, and I wouldn't be that surprised if Blackburn nick something from this one. I just think that if both teams are at their firing best in this one, you'd imagine Leeds would just have too much for Blackburn, but tactically they could make it difficult for Daniel Farke's side. Score prediction here, I'm going to go 2-1 Leeds. I think it's tough to look past their form right now, but Blackburn could throw in a bit of an upset there for sure. Next up, we go to Ashton Gate for Bristol City up against Plymouth, and I mean, I really feel for any Plymouth fan who endured that long journey to Carrow Road in midweek, all to see them getting absolutely put to the sword by Norwich. It's been well documented this season, but Plymouth have by far the worst away record in the league, just 2 points from their 9 away matches this season, but they've only scored 3 goals in that time and they've conceded 23, so they've got a negative 20 goal difference in just away matches this season, which is absolutely crazy. From a Bristol City perspective, it was a bit of a frustrating one in midweek against Watford. Very easily could have got something from that game. They had more of the ball, had more chances than Watford in that game, but were ultimately too wasteful in the final third, and Watford took their chance when that came around. Bristol City haven't been scoring that many goals of late, but I do think this is a decent chance to get a few goals on the board with how open Plymouth have looked defensively, especially in their away matches this season. Score prediction at Ashton Gate here, I'm going to go 3-1 Bristol City. I think Rooney has to try something different to try and get some sort of reaction from his Plymouth players after how bad they were in midweek, but I struggle to see past a Bristol City win there. After that, we go to Coventry up against Cardiff. It's finally been confirmed Frank Lampard is the new Coventry manager. And do you know what? I think this is probably a decent first fixture to be walking into. It's a home game. All of that home crowd is going to be behind Frank Lampard, despite the external noise that there will probably be on Coventry for the remainder of this season because they've appointed a big name in Lampard. I mean, no doubt that whole fan base will get right behind him. And it's a decent chance here to start out with all 3 points against a Cardiff squad who are definitely in a bit of a rut right now. Cardiff coming off the back of losing to bottom of the table QPR in midweek, which really keeps them sucked into this relegation scrap right now. It's 4 games without a win for Cardiff. They feel a little bit directionless at the moment with the way the club is just sort of meandering with no real direction this season. I know Coventry themselves haven't been on a great run recently, but they have had some tough fixtures, obviously coming off the back of a loss against Burnley in midweek. I think they'll be much more dominant in this fixture. They'll have the better chances. I'm going to go for a 2-0 Coventry win in Frank Lampard's first game in charge. After that, to Carrow Road for Norwich City up against Luton. Norwich fans must have been absolutely loving life in midweek. An absolutely dominant display against Plymouth, putting 6 goals past them in the end. And I mean, truth be told, they could have had even more goals in that game, which is the crazy part of it all. In free scoring form right now, with arguably the best player in the league as well, going up against a Luton side who, in away matches especially, look really low on confidence at the moment. I think we all thought it would be a tough away game for them in midweek against Leeds, but the drop-off from Luton this season compared to the side that won promotion last time around, I mean, it's absolutely chalk and cheese, isn't it? I didn't actually realise how bad their away record was this season as well until I took a bit of a deeper look into it today. But 8 games on the road this season, only 1 win, 6 defeats. They conceded 17 goals in their 8 away matches so far, and have only scored 5 goals in that time. With all of that underlying data, it's tough to look past a Norwich win for this one. Norwich have generally tended to be quite strong at Carrow Road, coming off the back of a thumping in midweek. Score prediction here, I'm going to go 2-1 to the Canaries in that one. After that, we head to Deepdale for Preston up against West Brom, and both sides could really do with a win in this one, couldn't they? For North End, it was a draw in midweek against Stoke. Bit better in terms of a performance than the Derby game, but once again, that lack of quality really shining through from a Preston perspective in that one, obviously. The highlight of that game was Freddie Woodman's red card late on. It will mean he's suspended for this game. Ty Cornell will be coming in and starting, and I mean, the way Woodman's been playing of late, I'm not sure he's that much of a loss right now, but it's a tricky one to call with Preston at the moment because while that lack of quality has been there, we've not been on a particularly great run of form recently. When you zoom out of things, we have only lost 2 of our last 10 games. We've been very draw heavy of late, and that's also been the case for West Brom. It was a point for them in midweek away at Sunderland. In isolation, I think that's a decent point for West Brom, but they've now drawn 8 of their last 9 matches, which is absolutely ridiculous. They're unbeaten in that 9-game streak. They've just been so draw heavy in that time. Obviously, it was a very specific game plan. They went to Sunderland, looked to be solid, play on the counter and things like that. It'll be very different in this one. I expect West Brom to have a lot more of the ball than they did in midweek. They'll have more chances in this game as well. And thinking back to last season, I mean, Carlos Corberán absolutely wiped the floor with Preston. West Brom beat us by an aggregate score of 7-0 across both of the fixtures we had against them last season. So that makes me a bit cautious coming into this one. If Preston score first, I think we can make a game of it, and I wouldn't be that surprised if it ends level. But I do think West Brom will probably see Preston here for the taking. Score prediction, I'm reluctantly going to go 2-0 West Brom. Hopefully I'm proven wrong though. Next up we go to Stoke up against Burnley. Obviously I was watching Stoke quite closely in midweek as they went up against North End. A game which really lacked quality, like I was saying before. I think that home crowd got quite frustrated after a while. And to be honest, it was a typical sort of flat midweek performance from 2 sides who both looked a little bit leggy, to be honest with you. And this one won't be easy up against a Burnley side who literally aren't conceding any goals right now. They've kept 9 clean sheets in their last 11 matches in the Championship, which is an absolutely astonishing record. Say what you like about the lack of goals at times, which has been really frustrating. Defensively, they've been an absolute juggernaut in this league. And to be fair to them, they have started to score a few more goals recently. Another good win for them in midweek, 2-0 against Coventry at home. Stoke are on a decent unbeaten run right now. They've not lost any of their last 5, but performances haven't been amazing during that run. Score prediction here, I'm going to back Burnley for another clean sheet and 3 points. 2-0 Burnley, I'm saying, on the road in that game. Next up we go to Swansea up against Portsmouth. A cracking result for Swansea in midweek, going away to Derby and beating them 2-1. It was 2 quick-fire goals from Swansea in that one. They were 2-0 up after 14 minutes. Second half had to hang on for all 3 points. Derby were really knocking on the door late on, but a cracking win away from home. Really good way to bounce back from that mental game they had against Leeds at the Liberty last time. And to be honest, I think they'll see this as a good opportunity to make it back-to-back wins here against a Portsmouth side who it's felt like we've not watched play in absolutely ages. They had their game against Blackburn over the weekend called off, and then their game in midweek against Millwall called off because of a power cut. Portsmouth will either come into this game being really fresh and up for it because they've not played in so long, or all their players will be lacking a bit of match sharpness. It really could go either way, I'm not too sure. We've never really seen anything like this in the Championship before. Score prediction for me in this game, I think it's tough to look past Swansea right now. They're starting to score a few more goals. They seem to have got over the hump of that goal drought they went on. You know, they scored 5 goals in their last 2 games now. Score prediction here, I'm going to go 2-0 Swansea in that game. And then to finish off the weekend, we've got Derby going up against Sheff Wednesday. Have to admit, I've been pretty impressed with Wednesday of late. It was a good win for them in midweek, by far the better team in that one against Hull. They won 2-0 in the end, but they could have had even more goals. And over their last couple of performances, I think they'd be getting into a lot of really good areas. They probably should have beat Cardiff over the weekend. That ended 1-1, but Wednesday had by far the better chances in that game. They can be a little bit wasteful from time to time, but performance levels, probably since they got battered by Watford, I think have been pretty decent from Wednesday. And they're going up against Derby side here who haven't been losing many matches of late, but haven't been winning that many either. It's now just one win in Derby's last 8 matches. They've been very draw heavy of late. Midweek was a bit of a nightmare because they found themselves 2 goals down after 14 minutes. They tried to fight their way back into that one, and the game very easily could have ended 2-2 with some of the chances they had, but wasn't to be in the end. A draw seems a reasonable outcome for this game. I've just got a feeling that Wednesday could shade this one on the road. Score prediction here, I'm going to go 2-1 Wednesday. Back them for another away win in that game. But guys, there you have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and get all your score predictions in the comments down below. Other than that though guys, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next one.